All right. Hey, Leith. Hey, Krista.
Hi, Taylor.
I'm excited because this week is going to be part one of a two-part series that we have going about helping parents help their kids push through and know when to push, when to back off. And this week we're talking about picking your battles. Which battles do you want to fight?
I know that that's a really broad topic, and but it's very real and very relatable to all the families that are doing distance learning, and even the teachers and staff members also. So I think it's really worthy of talking. And I know one area that I start is some things can be discussed ahead of time. So, the adults that are in a home, or we have many kids who have parents in different homes, and, trying to, as much as possible, being on the same page and respectful that you don't always have all the rules or see eye to eye with these things, which can be, even another level of the challenge. But having some conversations before so you can help support your child before something occurs. And then also being prepared to know that some decisions have to be made in that particular moment, because you can't always discuss all the behaviors that you might see. What do you think, Leith?
I agree. And I think in that discussion, what needs to happen is maybe come down to the one or two things, and it probably shouldn't be more than one or two things that are basically the non-negotiables, right? And what's important to you, and that's going to be different in every household and with every individual. What's important to me may not be important to my partner, but we need to come to an agreement on maybe those one or two things that are kind of yes, we're definitely on the same page on this. And we need to come up with how we can establish these boundaries for our child, and this is how we're going to handle it. But then after that, maybe come up with a list of things that, this might happen, that might happen, or we see this happening at this point, right? We're almost 5 weeks into our school year, and this keeps coming up, and what we're doing isn't working. So let's come together as the two adults and have a conversation about, okay, what is the best way to do that? And also, a really good resource for this might be the teacher. Sometimes reaching out to the teacher, or even reaching out to one of us as your counselor, that could also be helpful, in just having a third party listen in and maybe have some other solutions or supports or way to deal with a certain situation. It might be helpful. And the last thing is, know that the teachers kind of know what's going on, right? Haven't you guys seen that in the classes? Because it's classroom management.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me, it goes along with what we talked about last week. We were talking about Zoom etiquette and kind of releasing some of the responsibility to the student, your child, and the teachers, because in a school day where we're in-person classroom learning, you drop your little darlings off, whether morning daycare or at the beginning of the school day. And what we see in the classroom is what teachers are handling and managing those behaviors, and they still can be the best support system ever during distance learning. So I would say one way of gauging, is it a battle worth fighting, is if your child is in school and they've logged in and the behaviors happen, the parent or parents or grandparents or the adult in the home, giving them their school space and letting the teacher that they're working with be the one managing what they're seeing on the other end of the screen.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I keep coming back to parents being able to prioritize their relationship and having good communication between the two of them. And whether it's, in the same homes, at different homes, whoever the caregivers are, prioritizing and setting aside time to communicate about these things ahead of time is so important. And I remember working with a middle school family and having the parents do what we've talked about, that, these are deal breakers. These are, negotiable. These are things that we can work on, kind of categorizing things and having parents do that on their own, having the kids do that on their own, and then coming together and having a conversation about that. And it was really interesting to see that there was a lot that they really had in common, but there's a few things that the parents didn't realize, like, oh, this is a huge deal for them. And then the kids saw that, like, oh, this is actually the biggest deal for my parents.
Yeah. What I really love about that, Taylor, is it really helps them to see each other, the different perspectives, but it gives them an avenue to talk about what is real for them. I think some of the non-negotiables, it's like, we are in school. It is a legal obligation, and what a luxury. Many countries and cultures don't have school for kids. So what a privilege that we have this, great opportunity for our kids to, get education stuff. But it's the law. They have to log into school every single day. And I think a battle not worth fighting is if they keep their camera on all day, or if they keep, their microphone all day, because that is something that the teacher is aware of and the teacher can address in that moment, or later on when they meet privately with a student.
I think something else I thought of while you guys were talking was so much of distance learning and home is so integrated now that there really isn't a separation between an issue that's a home issue, an issue that's a school issue. They're all the same. And I think for parents, being able to kind of look at like that as a whole, like, okay, what battles am I going to fight as a whole? And okay, we've got school, but does that mean that my kiddo has to be respectful to me while they're on Zoom? Or so I think for parents looking at that sort of holistic, like, maybe I'm going to give a little bit on letting them have a messy room, but they need to be on their Zoom meeting on time, or whatever it is. But then having that communication with the kids, hey, you don't have to wear, you can wear pajama pants, but you got to be on Zoom, or whatever it is. And then creating those sort of win-win type situations where kids feel like they're winning, parents feel like they're winning. That's, to me, those are like the ideal goal.
Well, and you were saying something earlier, Krista, about having, an incentive to do this, right? So it's great to say, okay, we're in agreement and everything, but if we're viewing school as this is something you have to do and this is your job for our children, this is basically their job, what's their incentive for doing their job? And I mean, I don't know about you, but I love my job. I love doing my job. I show up every day and I love it. But, part of my incentive is I get a reward at the end. I get a paycheck at the end. So there's also a tangible out there for me to do what I'm doing. And that's not a small part of what motivates me to continue doing what I'm doing. So I think sometimes for the students, it's great to sit down and say, okay, these are the bottom line things we expect. You have to be at Zoom. You have to go to school. You need to be engaged, whatever those are for you as a family. But then also on the other side of it, what's the reward for doing this? Grades are grades, but not all kids are grade oriented. Not all kids are, work oriented. So we need to find that thing that really engages them in doing school. And it could be, if you get through your schoolwork today, you get an extra 15 minutes on your iPad tonight. Or we'll go out and have some time, even better. We'll go out and just have some one-on-one time, you and me. We'll walk down with our masks on and socially distance and get an ice cream cone or something along those lines. Just find ways of giving them kind of that incentive so that they can develop the habit. And then once the habit's in place, then it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, I'm a real big fan of positive reinforcement. And, I know that while this is really so big and real for most families right now, they're experiencing these different behavior changes that they're seeing with their kids, and it's really tough. At the end of the day, I think that every day should be a brand new beginning, and you want to give your kids all the incentive and all the positive reinforcement they can get. And one way that I'm noticing that kids are really connecting with each other, and it doesn't matter how young they are, is through electronics or video games. And you want them to have those abilities to connect with their friends and their peers. So I say every day, and this is going to have to be modified because there's obviously circumstances that would not allow for this, but you want to start the day with having them to have access to all of those luxury items, right? But school comes first. That's their job. That's their responsibility. And once they succeed in getting their lessons done or doing what they're doing on Zoom, then after the end, that's when they would get to reap the benefits of those rewards.
Okay, I have a question, Ms. Krista.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm just thinking like a student. So you're saying I have to get everything done every single day before I can do anything else?
No.
What?
I'm not saying everything every single day. I'm saying that you sit down together because certain things are not negotiable. If they have a big report they're working on, or they have lessons that the teacher wants to see, get so much done. I mean, they can have scheduled breaks. I mean, during school hours, every teacher has that differently. So you want to follow what your teacher is putting out there. But that's where the parents have the ability to sit down with their child and sit down and find out, why don't you get this part done now? Perhaps take that break. But within that break, they have to also be cognizant of, let's just say hypothetically, Miss Leith, that a student gets to have 45-minute break to go play video games, and then they're melting down 40 minutes into it because they don't want to get back into school. That might not be the reward that they get the next day. So everything has to be looked at of ultimately what's going to help your child be successful.
Yeah. So the process is, because I think that's a lot of info for parents, and I think the process is starting with that communication with the parents and the kids to kind of figure out what is the deal breaker, what is, you know, kind of the mid-level, what's something that we can negotiate on, and then from there you really look at what is your kid's currency, you know, what are they into, what do they want, and I think
you ask your student that, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say
that, you know, but you should ask them.
Yeah, that's that big part of having that relationship with your kids, because I think currencies change, and I think it depends on their age, and it depends on what they're into, and it depends on the setting. And I think, you know, something that I don't know if this is, I think it's okay. I think a lot of people have talked about love languages, and I will circle back and it'll make sense. But I think currency and the love languages go hand in hand, because so say, you know, as a parent, you know, it's a deal breaker for you to have your kiddo walk out of the room and slam the door. You know, and then you figure out, well, hey, maybe my love language is quality time, you know, but maybe your kids is acts of service. So figuring out that, sort of making sure that the currency is on the same level. And I think, you know, I read through that book a long time ago, and I can't remember.
It's a great book.
Yeah, and I think I'm allowed to recommend it in a school district. I don't know. I can't remember.
It's used very widely with couples, but also with families too. And I think that some of the challenges is when you have two different people, one can be a doer, one can be a giver, you know, and so finding a way of connecting them. But that goes back to that communication that you keep talking about, or Taylor, is that it has to start with communication. And, you know, something else that you said when you were talking about the whole picture is school and home is not divided. And it used to be divided, that you'd see carryovers and crossovers to one. But now some of these kids and some of these families are not having any separation. So that can be really, really challenging. And I think that giving and teaching kids, and even yourselves, while your kids are in school, give yourselves a break. Allow yourself to walk out of their school setting, so the teacher and student can build their relationship, and the teacher can help support you with some of the things that they might be seeing also. But the parents have to give themselves a break also. I love when you're communicating with your children or child, like, if you get frustrated because of the lag in Zoom, or how much the work is or seems, you know, what breaks can you give yourself that are healthy throughout the day, so you can care for yourself, so it doesn't become a battle.
Yeah,
absolutely. You know, I think, I mean, in thinking about picking battles, you know, I keep coming back to starting with basic needs too, you know, and parents and kids being able to start with, you know, are they hungry? Are they sleeping well? You know, we just had a meeting about a kiddo who's having a really hard time in Zoom meetings and falling asleep, but the dude's not sleeping at night. And so I think for parents, being able to look at it through the lens of like, well, okay, my number one battle is making sure my kid is sleeping, eating, and maybe getting a little bit of exercise if possible. And then kind of going to those higher level things. And then that's when it's like, oh, okay, we've got this frustration with the Zoom meeting. Okay, they're fed, they've got some rest, you know, they ate a vegetable, we're okay. you know, but in, you know, especially in these last few weeks, I've seen a big ebb and flow of like, where are we at with the basic needs? Some days are better than others, which is a good segue into like talking about when we push and when we don't push. But
Right. Something I was going to say addressing that is the other part that I think parents, and certainly, you know, sometimes staff does as well, when we're in these meetings with these children, is we forget school is not just academics, it's also their social world.
mhm,
And so sometimes, and teachers are pretty aware of this, so sometimes they will let the conversations wander a little bit and give the students time to kind of connect on that level, because they're reading the room and they know that their students might need 5 minutes of just, oh yeah, they're really into this, let's have a 5-minute discussion on this, and let the kids kind of take the lead. The teachers have the skills to bring them back again. So if you're walking by your child's Zoom and it doesn't seem like they're doing anything, they're actually doing really important work, because they're getting those social and emotional needs met, and they're learning how to do that give and take. And it may seem very chaotic, but there's probably a reason that it's being allowed in that moment. So don't worry that your child's not focused on academics in that moment, because a big part of school is also learning how to be part of the community and making those social connections.
Yeah, something that I've always really have such pride in is that our district as a whole really recognizes the social emotional needs have to be met first in order for the kids to even tap into that education part, right? So that's what you're talking about. You know, both of you guys are talking about, you know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, of like our basic needs have to be met first, and it does start with sleep and food and just basic necessities. But even if you have all of those things, you socially emotionally might not be connected. You might be having overwhelming feelings that are really big feelings and are hard to manage in your bodies. And you know, you have to ask yourself, is it what are they going to remember, you know, next week, next month, next year, 10 years from now? It's not going to be so much of like if they stayed in their Zoom meeting all day long, or if they had their camera on or off. It's really going to be about the people they connected with, how you help navigate them through these really challenging times. It's all about that relationship piece.
Absolutely.
yeah. So I'm hearing the major battle to fight is focusing on the relationship. It's what it seems like it all boils down to.
It does. It really, that's in everything though. You know, you look at
our relationship.
you know, you can look at, you know, couples relationships, friendships. I mean, every part of your life is really about how you communicate and how you build those relationships, the bridging between people. And I love the part where you know, we've all talked about different ways of doing it, different styles, but really about talk and listen to what your child is saying. Try to hear and imagine how they are feeling, you know, think through their lens. And I hope that they can yours too. But what we adults have is experience. You know, we have history with learning how to navigate through our thoughts and feelings. And that's what we're teaching the kids to learn how to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's hard work. It's hard stuff.
It is hard work.
It is. And it's, you know, and I think it's good that we can acknowledge too for parents that their basic needs and their relationship is really important in this. And I think we mentioned it before, but kind of the idea of putting the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on other people.
Yep. They need to take care of themselves.
And acknowledging also, this is all new. We don't have experience with this. You know I've said it before, probably every single time we get together to make these parent videos, but you know, we're all reacting in a really normal way for a very abnormal situation. We're all doing the best that we can, and kids are too, and so are the adults. They're taking on everything, and we know that you want your kids to be successful. We feel that, we know that, and they are being as successful as they can possibly be. And sometimes even those successes might look different. You know, it might look like turning off the camera or not participating all day, but it doesn't mean that they're not being successful.
Right.
Yeah. Well, right on. Well, thank you. And I'm looking forward to next week.
Yeah, me
talking
too.
more about when to push and when not to push.
Me too. Choose your battles wisely for this week, folks.
Yeah.
Give
so
yourself some room.
I know parents can feel free to email us any questions if they have specific battles. Maybe if they're wondering if they should fight those, they can definitely email us, and we can help them for sure.
Yeah, perhaps we should share our email addresses. Do you think so?
Yes, good call. Go ahead, Krista.
Okay, I'm Krista Boyd, and it's at K Boyd BOYD at RVUSD.org.
Okay, and I'm Leith Ulrich, so that would be L Ulrich, LULRICH at RVUSD.org.
And I'm THOCKETT at RVUSD.org.
Now, parents, if you email us, please be patient with our return responses to your emails. We too have to triage everything that we do.
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks, guys. I'll see you guys later.
Okay,
All
bye.
right. Bye, Taylor.